The air is thick with the smell of damp straw and smoke, curling from thin chimneys that claw at the sky like desperate fingers. You wake with the weight of cold pressing into your bones, the stone floor beneath you sucking warmth as though it knows it will never give it back. Outside, the earth is a sticky mess of mud and manure, each step threatening to pull your worn boots from your feet. Hunger gnaws at the edges of your mind, a constant whisper that your stomach has begun to memorize, and you taste the bitter memory of last night's gruel still clinging to your tongue. Your hands ache from yesterday's labour, fingers cracked and red, cuticles caked with soil and blood. The leather of your sleeves rubs raw against the bruised skin, and each movement is an argument with your own body. Somewhere in the village, a pig grunts and a child screams, a sound that twists into the other. Neither is more urgent than the other. Both are equally unavoidable. You wipe your nose on the back of your sleeve and taste the grit of the road, dust mingled with the remains of rotting vegetables discarded by wealthier households. The wind carries the sharp tang of sickness, wet and sour, pressing into your lungs as you step outside. A neighbour coughs, ragged and intermittent, and you see the pallor of her skin, stretched thin over her bones. Her children cling to her skirts, their small hands dirty, fingernails black with work and neglect. You know you might one day look like her, walking slowly, the strength drained from your muscles before you even reach 30. The well squeaks with the rope dragging up the bucket, water speckled with grime floating like tiny corpses. You bend to drink, tasting iron and the faint rot of leaves, knowing it will keep you alive for another day. In the distance, the church bell tolls, a sound that once promised sanctuary, but now only measures the slow passing of suffering. A dog limps past, its fur matted and filthy, chasing something that no one will ever see again. Children dart through the mud, laughing too loud, too shrill. And it stings because joy feels unnatural here. Your mouth is dry, your tongue thick, and you swallow, tasting the grit of yesterday's bread, hard and bitter. The day stretches before you as a procession of unrelenting labour, hunger, and the faint shadow of fear. Every sound, smell, and touch reminds you that life is a negotiation with misery. You steady your hands, press your feet into the cold ground, and step toward the fields, each movement a compromise with your own exhaustion. Today, like every day, the world insists you continue, even when you are nothing more than a collection of aches and longing. The sun offers no warmth, only a pale, indifferent light that washes over the fields, making the mud glint with a dull, slippery sheen. Your fingers dig into the cold earth, pulling weeds and turning soil, each motion scraping raw the tender flesh beneath your nails. Sweat mixes with the grime on your arms, sticky and salty, and the smell of wet clay and rotting plants clings to you like a second skin. Around you, the other labourers move in silence, their bodies bending and straightening in an unspoken rhythm, each groan a punctuation mark to the endless monotony. A crow lands on a fence post, flapping its black wings, and caws in a voice sharp enough to cut through the dull ache of your limbs. You flinch at the sound, though you know it carries no threat, only the reminder that life continues elsewhere, indifferent to your struggle. In the distance, smoke rises from the baker's oven, rich and sweet for a moment, until the scent reaches you fully, and your stomach twists in betrayal. You have tasted nothing but gruel for 2 days, the meagre portion chewed slowly, swallowed with water that tastes faintly of moss. A child trips on the mud, wailing, and you glance toward the sound, heart tightening. The mother does not come immediately. She is bent over, digging into the earth with hands cracked and bleeding, her skirts catching in the muck. You remember your own mother, her face pale and sunken, and the memory makes your shoulders sag further, though there is no time to rest. Pain is not a signal to stop here. It is the constant companion of survival. The wind rises suddenly, tugging at your cloak, forcing grit into your eyes. You blink rapidly, tasting it on your tongue, bitter and sharp. Somewhere, a dog barks, but not close enough to matter. The sound carries only anxiety, a small, restless vibration that travels through the mud and into your bones. You pull a handful of weeds free and feel the sting of thorns scrape your palm, and you curse softly. A sound swallowed by the expanse of dull grey sky. Your knees sink slightly into the mud, and the ache spreads upward, slow and merciless. Every breath is heavy, humid, with the smell of your own exertion. You hear the faint crack of a branch in the distance, the rustle of unseen animals, and it makes you flinch even as your mind reminds you there is no danger in it. Fear here is a background hum, a low vibration beneath everything else. By mid-afternoon, the world is a blur of brown and grey, your stomach empty, muscles screaming, and still you bend to the earth, hands raw, fingernails broken. You taste the iron of blood from a scratch on your palm, mix it with the bitterness of mud, and swallow anyway. Life is this: scraping, pulling, inhaling, tasting, aching, and moving forward, because the day insists it must. No one will stop it for you, and nothing in the world offers comfort for the effort expended. By late afternoon, your shoulders are a leaden weight, arms trembling with each motion, yet the fields stretch endlessly before you, unyielding and indifferent. The sun, a pale smear behind clouds, casts no heat, only a dull light that turns the mud into a slick mirror, reflecting your hunched figure like a distorted shadow. You taste grit again, clinging stubbornly to the inside of your teeth, and your tongue aches with it, as if the earth itself refuses to be swallowed quietly. A bell tolls from the distant church, hollow and slow, but it does not mark mercy or respite. Instead, it is a metronome, counting the minutes of your small suffering against the unending expanse of work. Children run past you, small feet caked with mud, shrieking with laughter that feels out of place, sharp and cruel against the dull rhythm of labour. One stumbles, tears streaking the filth of his face, but his mother, eyes sunken, hands raw, barely glances up before returning to her own task. You recognise the pattern. Joy is a brief disturbance, swallowed quickly by the inevitability of survival. The wind carries the tang of manure and smoke, and somewhere nearby a pig grunts at the edge of a pen. You wipe sweat from your brow with the back of a hand, leaving a streak of dirt across your face, and taste the iron tang mingled with bitter sweat. Every nerve in your body aches, your fingers stiff, your back tight, and even your jaw feels sore from the constant tension of quiet endurance. A neighbour passes, carrying a basket of potatoes. You glance at it, noticing the rot and sprouting eyes, and your stomach twists, hungry and betrayed. She nods briefly, silent acknowledgement of shared misery, before moving on, boots sinking into the mud, leaving tracks that will vanish in minutes under the tread of others. Your eyes follow her until she is gone, and then you bend once more, feeling the sting of thorns and splintered roots against your raw hands. A rat skitters across the field edge, tail flicking, and your stomach lurches with instinctive disgust and recognition. It survives here too, among the filth and cold, a reminder that life clings to whatever scraps remain, indifferent to who suffers for them. You taste the dust again, mixed with the memory of yesterday's gruel, and swallow, the act both necessary and punishing. As evening draws nearer, the clouds thicken, promising rain that will make the mud heavier, the work harder, the cold more piercing. You straighten for a moment, muscles screaming, and look across the fields, endless stretches of labour and toil, each plot a small testament to endurance. The air is heavy, suffused with the scent of damp earth, sweat and the faint sour hint of decay from composted refuse. You move again, hands pressing into the cold, unyielding soil, knees giving a little with every bend, and taste the same bitterness on your tongue, the ever-present whisper of hunger gnawing at the edges of consciousness. There is no reprieve, only the insistence of another motion, another stretch of back and arms, another breath inhaling cold, damp despair. You adjust your posture and continue, a single figure swallowed by the unrelenting vastness of the ordinary, uncelebrated, endless struggle. The rain comes slowly at first, a fine mist that dampens your hair, seeps through your cloak, and chills your skin beneath the layers of wool and patched linen. Each droplet carries the scent of mud, sweat and rot, merging into a single heavy perfume that presses into your lungs. You bend over the soil again, fingers slick with wet earth, and feel the sting of splintered roots scrape against your raw palms. The mud clings to your boots and legs, heavy and unyielding, as though the ground itself seeks to swallow you whole. A child cries somewhere nearby, a sharp, piercing sound that cuts through the dull patter of rain. You glance up, seeing a small figure shivering, clothing soaked, hair plastered to a pale, tear-streaked face. Their mother does not come, perhaps too burdened by her own labours, perhaps too exhausted to care. The child's sobs are a soundtrack to your own misery, echoing a pain you cannot shake, a vulnerability you recognise in every shivering muscle of your own body. You taste the mud in your mouth again, metallic and gritty, and swallow, knowing it will do little to fill the emptiness gnawing in your stomach. Hunger is a constant companion, a shadow at the edge of every movement, twisting in tandem with fatigue. Your back aches from bending, your knees protest with each step, and yet you press on, scraping weeds, turning the earth, dragging roots from the soil. Each motion is both necessary and punishing, a negotiation with your own failing strength. The wind rises suddenly, carrying with it the mingled stench of animals and decay from the village outskirts. A goat bleats in the distance, its cry shrill against the drumming of rain. Somewhere, a dog scratches at a gate, nails tapping against wood worn thin by age and weather. You shiver, tasting the bitter tang of your own sweat on your tongue, and feel the damp creep deeper into your bones, a chill that seems to settle permanently into the marrow. A bucket tips over nearby, sending a mixture of water and sludge onto the ground with a wet splash. You flinch and wipe your sleeve across your eyes, leaving streaks of grime that burn against your skin. The smell of wet straw and animal waste intensifies, clinging to your clothes and hair, a constant reminder that cleanliness is a luxury the world does not afford you. As the day stretches onward, your limbs move mechanically, muscles screaming with fatigue, joints stiff, and hands blistered and cracked. You taste the sourness of rainwater in your mouth, bitter as bile, and swallow, because it is all there is. The clouds above darken further, heavy with the promise of a storm, and the world feels compressed around you, each breath a labour, each step an argument with exhaustion. You pause for a moment, hands resting on knees, back bowed, and listen. The rain, the wind, the distant cries of children, the low groans of labourers, the small, persistent noises of animals, everything conspires into a single, oppressive chorus of survival. You inhale deeply, tasting the cold, damp air, and press forward again, dragging your body through the mud, swallowed by a landscape indifferent to your suffering, as ordinary and unrelenting as the lives that inhabit it. The storm breaks fully now, rain lashing your face, mixing with tears you don't bother to wipe away. Your cloak clings to your shoulders like a second skin, soaked through, heavy with mud and sweat. Each movement sends a shiver up your spine. muscles quivering from the chill that seeps into your bones. The soil is slick beneath your fingers, sticky and unrelenting, tugging at your hands as if it resents your intrusion. You taste the bitter tang of earth again, metallic and coarse, and swallow it alongside a hollow pang of hunger that twists low in your stomach. Somewhere nearby, a cowbell jingles, hollow and uneven. The sound carries through the wind, clanging against the grey roar of rain, a reminder that animals continue their routines indifferent to human suffering. You notice a goat limping, one hoof sinking into the mud with each step, its bleat sharp and plaintive. The sight sharpens your own aches, the small, persistent reminders of weakness that everybody bears in this place. Children stumble past, faces streaked with grime, mouths open in wails and coughs. Their laughter has long since faded into survival, replaced by a shrill urgency that makes your heart ache. One trips, knees pressed raw against the mud, and you see the skin scrape off like paper, red and angry, and taste it in your imagination, a bitter, coppery tang that almost makes your stomach lurch. The mother does not lift her gaze, already bent low in her own task, hands clawing roots and weeds from the stubborn soil. Your hands burn from the constant labour, cracked and raw, soaked through with water and mud. You press them into the earth again, feeling the sting of sharp stones and buried branches. Every movement is resistance against your own exhaustion, every motion a conversation with pain that insists you continue. Sweat and rain mingle, dripping into your eyes, burning the corners, mixing with the grime of the day. You blink rapidly, tasting the mixture, the bitter wetness coating your tongue and throat. A dog barks somewhere beyond the fields. Distant but persistent, its voice carrying through the wind. A small intrusion into the rhythmic monotony of labour. The smell of wet animals, manure and rot grows sharper, pressing into your senses like an inescapable wall. You inhale, tasting each layer of filth, and exhale, knowing the air you breathe carries nothing but the world itself, cold, damp, and indifferent. By late afternoon, the ground is a patchwork of mud puddles, footprints, and broken stalks. Your feet sink with every step, knees stiff, back aching, and the rain shows no sign of letting up. You taste the bitterness of your own sweat and the faint sourness of wet wool pressing against your skin. Still you bend to the earth again, pulling, scraping, digging, because this is all that exists. Labour, endurance, and the constant, gnawing whisper of hunger and fatigue. You lift your head for a moment, rain plastering your hair to your forehead, and see nothing but the grey horizon, wet and endless. The world is heavy, oppressive, unrelenting, and it does not care for your pain. You bend once more, hands raw, back trembling, and step into the rhythm of survival again, swallowed by the damp, indifferent landscape that shapes every moment of your life. The rain slows, leaving a damp heaviness that clings to your skin and clothes like a persistent memory. Every movement sends water sliding down your back, pooling in the small hollow of your spine, cold and unyielding. Your fingers, stiff and raw, curl into the muddy earth, scraping roots and stones, each motion a muted argument with exhaustion. The air is thick with the smell of wet straw and the faint, sour tang of animal dung, clinging to your hair and sleeves. You taste it again, bitter and metallic, lingering long after your lips meet the air. A child cries somewhere along the edge of the field, small and sharp, a sound that makes your chest tighten. You know their hunger, their cold, their fatigue without even seeing them, because it mirrors your own. Their mother bends over weeds nearby, hands bloody and cracked, moving as if she is part of the mud itself, each gesture a negotiation with pain. No words pass between them. There is no comfort, only the muted acknowledgement of shared endurance. You lift a bucket of water, mud sloshing against the rim, and feel it pull at your arms, muscles screaming with strain. The water tastes faintly of iron and rot, the memory of puddles and refuse mingling with the sweat on your tongue. You swallow, and the act feels both necessary and futile. Hunger claws from below, gnawing at the hollow in your stomach, and you press on, scraping earth and pulling weeds, each motion scraping at your skin as the day stretches endlessly ahead. The wind shifts suddenly, cold and damp, bringing the stench of decaying leaves and the faint copper smell of blood from an animal's recent injury. You flinch, tasting the iron in your mouth, remembering a similar cut on your hand that has not yet healed. Somewhere, a dog barks and a pig grunts, but the sounds are muffled beneath the persistent rhythm of labour and rain. The village itself feels distant, yet oppressive, pressing against you with its scent, noise, and unrelenting demands. Your knees sink into the mud as you rise, back protesting, every joint stiff and screaming. A small bird flits through the grey sky, wings dripping with water, its presence brief, almost cruel in contrast to the dull, endless toil beneath you. You glance at the horizon, grey and unbroken, and feel the weight of monotony settle on your shoulders. Each breath is cold, damp, and heavy with the taste of earth and sweat, pressing into your lungs until they ache. Even as the light fades, there is no relief. Shadows lengthen across the mud, darkening the hollows and puddles, and you bend once more, hands raw, muscles trembling. The day insists you continue, and you obey. Hunger, fatigue, cold and dampness weave together into a single oppressive texture that wraps around your body. You taste the bitter tang of survival in every movement, every step, every breath, and step into the rhythm again, swallowed by the relentless insistence of ordinary life. Night falls suddenly, though the sky remains a dull, wet grey, clouds pressing low as if to touch the earth. Your body aches from the day's labour, muscles stiff and hands raw, but the work has not ended. A fire smoulders weakly in the distance, smoke curling thin and grey, smelling faintly of soot and damp wood, a promise of warmth that feels almost cruel in its insufficiency. The mud under your boots squelches with each step, a small, constant reminder of everything heavy and immovable in the world. A child cries from the edge of the fields, voice high and urgent, echoing against the empty, grey expanse. Their mother moves past without acknowledgement, hands full of pulled weeds, skirt streaked with mud, back bent low under the weight of labour that cannot be paused. You hear the faint rasp of her breath, short and uneven, and recognise it as your own mirrored in someone else. Shared misery, unspoken, relentless. You bend to the soil again, cold rainwater dripping into your sleeves, mixing with sweat and the lingering taste of yesterday's gruel. Each motion scrapes your palms, mingling the sting of raw skin with grit, mud, and the faint metallic tang of blood. Hunger twists low in your stomach, a subtle, insistent ache that sharpens with every movement, every bend, every scrape against unyielding earth. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of wet animals, manure, and decaying leaves. Somewhere, a dog scratches at a gate, nails clicking against rotting wood, and a pig snorts at the edge of its pen. Breath steaming in the cold night air, the sounds mingle into a rhythm that presses against your nerves. A quiet, constant reminder of life continuing without pause, indifferent to your exhaustion. A faint flicker of lightning illuminates the field briefly, casting strange, slanting shadows that dance across the mud and roots, and for a moment, you see everything. The bent backs, the worn hands, the stiff knees of labourers pressed into the earth like reluctant statues. The vision vanishes as quickly as it appears, leaving only the grey, wet world and the relentless pull of labour. Your lips taste the bitterness of the air, thick with damp and rot, and you swallow it without thought, as if the act itself will sustain you. Every bone in your body aches, every joint protests, but you move again, dragging roots free, scraping mud, pressing against your exhaustion, because it is all that exists. The night, heavy and cold, presses down, each breath a struggle, each movement a quiet argument with the world itself. The fire in the distance burns lower, a weak glow in the grey night, and the fields stretch endlessly before you. Wet, dark, and unyielding. You bend once more, hands raw and trembling, tasting the mud and sweat together, and step forward into the rhythm of labour that insists upon you. There is no pause, no mercy, only the ordinary, unrelenting world pressing against every fibre of your being, and you press on, swallowed entirely by its indifference. The morning arrives, though it is little more than a pale grey light that seeps weakly through thick clouds. Your body aches in ways you had forgotten yesterday, joints stiff, muscles screaming from the repeated strain, and yet the world will not wait. The earth is a slick, unyielding mass beneath your boots, mud sucking at your steps, pulling small tufts of grass and straw with it. Your fingers dig into the cold soil again, knuckles scraped raw, taste of iron and grit lingering on your tongue. Somewhere near the edge of the field, a woman coughs, long and ragged, the sound raw with fatigue. You glance briefly, and the sight is familiar. Sunken cheeks, pale skin, hands knotted and cracked. The evidence of years spent bending toward the earth and scraping survival from it. A child runs past, laughing too loud, too sharp, too fleeting, only to stumble and cry moments later. The mother does not look up, the wail swallowed in the rhythm of her labour, and you understand, intimately, that life here measures itself in endurance, not comfort. A bucket tips over nearby, water spilling into the mud with a soft, liquid hiss. You bend to right it, tasting the sour tang of wet wood and mud, iron beneath it. Each motion presses the ache deeper into your shoulders and knees, a subtle, insistent argument with your own exhaustion. Hunger twists low in your stomach, a quiet clawing that never ceases, sharpened by the faint scent of bread from a nearby house, baked too rich, too plentiful for your reach. The wind carries a mixture of smells, damp straw, the faint rot of compost, the sharp tang of animals pressed into small pens. A dog barks in the distance, a shrill interruption to the low, constant symphony of human labour. You flinch, tasting the bitterness of sweat and rain mingled together, and press your hands into the earth again, roots and stones scraping at your palms as if testing your endurance. Rain begins again, a slow drizzle at first, then heavier, soaking your hair and dripping down your neck into your sleeves. The mud clings more insistently, boots and skirts thick with weight. You lift a clump of soil, hands trembling, and feel it pull at your arms, muscles screaming with strain. Every breath carries the scent of wet earth, manure, sweat, an overwhelming, oppressive perfume of ordinary life. You glance at the horizon, endless grey, broken only by the faint shimmer of water in low hollows, the weak flicker of smoke from distant chimneys. Life presses on here in quiet, relentless rhythm, hands raw, bodies aching, hunger gnawing, and the cold pressing like a second skin. You bend once more, tasting mud and iron, and step forward, moving through the unbroken field with a stubborn insistence that is less choice than survival. The world does not pause, and neither do you. The drizzle eases into a thin mist, clinging to your hair, eyelashes, and the rough fabric of your sleeves. Each breath tastes damp, earthy, faintly metallic, and you swallow the cold air as though it might sustain you. Your hands are raw from constant scraping of soil, the cracks along your knuckles sharp and stinging. Yet you press them into the mud again, feeling roots and stones bite as if the earth itself resents your intrusion. The ache in your back hums low, constant, an almost familiar companion now, echoing in every movement. A child cries in the distance, voice high and urgent, slicing through the dull rhythm of labour. You glance toward the sound, seeing the small figure stumble through mud, skirt plastered to legs, hair hanging in wet tangles. The mother does not rush, hands and arms slick with soil, dragging a stubborn root, and you recognise the pattern. Endurance must outweigh all else. Joy is fleeting as the brief sun that occasionally pierces the grey sky, mocked by the ever-present chill. The wind shifts, carrying the faint stench of animal pens, manure, damp straw, the musky tang of pigs and goat. You taste it in your mouth, bitter and sour, mingled with the sweat already coating your tongue. Somewhere nearby, a dog scratches at a gate, nails clicking against rotted wood, a reminder that life continues, often indifferent to human suffering. You flinch, then resume your labour, bending again, hands digging into the unyielding soil, fingers scraping against hidden stones. Hunger twists low in your stomach, a constant, insistent gnaw, sharpened by the distant scent of cooking bread drifting from a neighbour's house. You taste the bitterness of your own sweat, in contrast, dry and metallic, and swallow, knowing it does nothing to ease the emptiness. Muscles tremble under the weight of repetition. Your knees ache from bending. Your back hums with fatigue. Yet the soil waits, patient and unrelenting, and you move, obeying its silent insistence. A bird flits across the grey sky, dripping water from its wings, its presence fleeting and almost cruel against the monotony of the fields. Lightning flickers in the distance, illuminating the wet landscape in a ghostly glow, and you see everything: the twisted roots, the clumps of mud, the bowed figures of labourers pressed into the earth, each one swallowed by ordinary struggle. The vision disappears as quickly as it comes, leaving only grey, cold, damp, and the taste of labour in your mouth. Your boots sink into the softened ground, mud weighing down each step. You adjust your grip on a stubborn root, muscles screaming with strain, and feel the sting of scraped palms, a faint trickle of blood mixing with mud. Every movement is necessary. Every breath carries the chill and damp into your lungs, and every step forward tastes of bitter survival. You bend once more, pressing your forehead close to the wet soil, inhaling its cold metallic scent, and rise again, swallowed by the rhythm of endless labour. The world pressing on as if indifferent to your existence. The rain returns suddenly, sharper now, drumming on your shoulders, seeping into the nape of your neck, chilling the muscles in your back until they protest with every movement. Mud squelches beneath your boots, thick and unyielding, clinging to your legs, pulling at the hem of your skirts with each step. Your hands are streaked with a mixture of water, soil, and the faint iron of old cuts, raw and throbbing, yet you press them into the earth again, scraping, tugging, pulling as though the ground itself requires submission. A child whimpers nearby, voice muffled under the weight of rain, and you glance toward the sound. The small figure is hunched over, hair plastered to a pale, mud-streaked face. The mother moves past without pause, bent low, back stiff, hands clawing at weeds and roots, fingernails blackened with soil. You taste the bitterness of damp in your mouth, metallic and acrid, a reminder that nourishment here is as scarce as warmth, as fleeting as comfort. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks sharply, nails clicking against the frozen earth, while a pig grunts in its pen, nostrils pressed to wet straw. The sounds cut through the dull drum of rain. Yet the effect is not relief, but a sharpened awareness of the world pressing in. You shiver as water runs down your sleeves, pooling in the small hollows of your bent elbows, and feel the sting of cold pressing deep into your bones. Every breath tastes of earth and sweat, bitter and persistent, as if the air itself conspires with your exhaustion. A neighbour passes by, carrying a basket of potatoes, eyes hollow, cheeks flushed from the cold and exertion. You glance at the basket and see small sprouts curling from the skin, rot hidden beneath the rough surface. Hunger twists low, insistent, gnawing, and your stomach clenches as your hands, raw and bleeding, move again to the wet soil. Each motion scrapes your palms, drags roots, and presses fatigue deeper into your back and knees. The horizon is grey, unbroken, stretching endlessly, fields slick with water and mud, and you taste bitterness on your tongue once more. Mud, rain, sweat, a sharp metallic tang of small cuts along your hands. A crow lands on a fence post, wings spreading wet and black, cawing sharply, and the sound makes your heart jump, though it carries no danger. Life here continues in small, indifferent gestures. Labour, hunger, wet cold pressing against your skin, and the ever-present ache in every joint and muscle. As evening approaches, the clouds darken further, heavy with rain yet to come. You bend once more, hands raw, back trembling, and press into the mud, scraping, tugging, pulling. Every movement tastes of labour, every breath is damp and metallic, every joint hums with fatigue. The world offers no pause, no warmth, no comfort, only the relentless insistence of ordinary existence pressing against every fibre of your being. You rise briefly, taste the bitter wet air, and step forward again, swallowed by the wet, unyielding landscape that defines your life. The dawn is grey, pale and diffused, offering no warmth, only the muted light that presses across the wet fields. Your fingers are stiff and cracked, nails blackened by mud and soil, yet they dig again into the earth, scraping and tugging at roots that resist every effort. Your back aches with the memory of yesterday's labour, every joint stiff and sore, but the soil waits with quiet insistence, indifferent to the complaints of the body. You taste the bitter tang of wet clay in your mouth, metallic and sharp, and swallow it alongside the low gnaw of hunger in your belly. Somewhere beyond the fields, a child whines, small voice thin and urgent, carried on the cold morning air. Their mother moves without notice, hands raw, sleeves caked in mud, bending low to pluck weeds from the unyielding soil. You see her shoulders tense, muscles taut, every movement deliberate, measured, a constant negotiation with fatigue and pain. You recognise it because your own body mirrors hers, every ache a familiar rhythm, every breath carrying damp, bitter air into your lungs. A faint stench rises from the livestock pens nearby, wet straw, manure, the musky scent of pigs and goats pressed into small crowded spaces. You taste it on the wind, bitter and sour, mingling with the sweat coating your skin and the traces of mud in your mouth. A dog scratches at a fence, nails clicking against rotted wood, and the sound makes your heart flinch, though the moment passes and the world presses on unchanged. The mud clings stubbornly to your boots, sucking at each step, and you feel the pull of every movement deep into your muscles and bones. Hunger twists low in your stomach, a constant pressure that sharpens with the sight of bread baked in a neighbour's oven. Steam rising faintly through the grey air. Your lips taste the metallic tang of sweat and blood from tiny cuts on your hands. Yet you press into the soil again, scraping, pulling, pressing through the dull ache that saturates your entire body. The wind rises, carrying with it the faint tang of decay from compost piles and fallen leaves, mixed with the smell of wet wood and animals. A bird flits briefly across the grey sky, wings dripping, and you glance up, momentarily dizzy with exhaustion, before returning your gaze to the soil, to the roots, to the mud that seems endless. Every movement presses the ache deeper, every breath tastes of earth and labour, every joint hums with quiet protest. By mid-morning the fields are a wet expanse of grey and brown, glistening with water and mud. Your muscles tremble with effort, your back stiff, fingers raw, yet you bend once more, hands pressing into the soil, pulling weeds, scraping roots, tasting mud and iron and sweat. The day continues, unbroken, indifferent, and you step forward again, swallowed entirely by the ordinary, relentless rhythm of survival that defines your life. The rain has stopped, but the air is thick and damp, clinging to your hair and skin like a cold, wet cloak. Your hands are stiff, knuckles split, fingers raw and trembling as they press again into the softened earth, scraping stubborn roots from mud that refuses to yield. The taste of wet clay lingers on your tongue, bitter and metallic, mingling with the lingering tang of sweat. Every movement carries the weight of exhaustion, muscles screaming in quiet protest. Yet you bend again, knowing nothing will wait for you. A child wails nearby, small voice cutting through the low rustle of wet leaves and distant animal calls. The mother bends over the soil without pause, hands streaked with mud and blood, hair damp and clinging to her face. You watch, recognizing every nuance, the stiff shoulders, the tense jaw, the constant negotiation between fatigue and the world's relentless demands. Hunger gnaws low in your belly, a quiet, insistent clawing that pulls your attention even as your hands move almost mechanically. The wind carries the mingled stench of manure, wet straw, and rotting leaves. Somewhere a dog scratches at the fence, nails tapping against softened wood. You taste it in your mouth, bitter and sour, a sharp contrast to the faint, sweet hint of bread baking somewhere down the lane. The aroma is tantalizing, cruel, your stomach twists with longing, your throat dry, yet the earth waits. And you obey, scraping roots, pressing mud, dragging your body through the unbroken rhythm of labour. A crow lands nearby, black wings glistening with moisture, and caws sharply, the sound cutting through the haze of rain-dampened air. Your muscles tense, and you taste the bitter copper of blood from small cuts on your hands, raw and persistent. Each breath draws in cold, heavy air, pressed with the smell of wet earth and sweat, mingling into a constant, oppressive presence that fills your lungs and lingers on your tongue. The fields stretch endlessly before you, grey and brown, soaked and unyielding. Every step sinking into mud that seems determined to swallow you. Your knees ache, your back hums with tension, your fingers tremble with the strain of repeated effort. Yet still you bend again, pulling weeds, scraping stones, tasting the faint rot of soil and decay on your lips. Every motion presses fatigue deeper into your bones. Every breath carries the damp, bitter taste of ordinary survival. By mid-afternoon, the world is silent except for the small, persistent noises of labour, mud squelching under boots, the scrape of roots, the faint rustle of wet straw, the occasional bleat or bark of animals. You bend once more, hands raw, back trembling, and step forward, swallowed entirely by the rhythm of ordinary life that does not pause, does not forgive, and does not care for your exhaustion. You inhale the cold, damp air, taste it bitter on your tongue, and continue, every fibre of your body pressed into the unyielding earth. Every motion a negotiation with survival itself. A pale grey light filters through the clouds, casting the soaked fields in a monotone glaze, dull and unrelenting. Your hands are numb, cracked from days of scraping soil, veins raised beneath raw skin, yet they dig again into the mud, fingers curling around roots and stones that resist with stubborn persistence. Each motion is a negotiation with your own exhaustion, muscles trembling with effort, breath shallow and sharp in the damp air. The metallic tang of wet earth lingers on your tongue, bitter and unyielding, as though the soil itself insists on tasting you in return. A child cries near the edge of the field, small voice high, urgent. Yet the mother does not look up. Her hands are raw, fingernails blackened with dirt, sleeves plastered to her arms, back bent in a slow, measured rhythm. She moves as if part of the soil, a figure carved from fatigue and necessity, each gesture an argument with pain that neither she nor the earth will yield. You recognise her posture, her small, sharp movements, because your own body mirrors them, ache for ache, strain for strain. The wind carries the pungent scent of animals, pigs, goats, and the faint copper tang of blood from unseen injuries. Somewhere nearby, a dog scratches at a gate, nails clacking against rotted wood. You taste the bitter tang of sweat and mud together, and swallow, as if swallowing could dull the relentless hunger gnawing in your stomach. Hunger is a constant companion here, clawing low, persistent, sharpened by the distant, cruel aroma of baking bread from a neighbour's home. Your boots sink into the softened mud with every step, knees trembling beneath the weight of repetition, back stiff and aching. The fields stretch endlessly, a wet, grey expanse of stubborn soil, roots and debris. Indifferent to your suffering, you press your hands into the earth again, scraping, tugging, pulling, tasting the bitter copper of blood from small cuts on your palms, and inhale the damp air, thick with decay and sweat. A crow caws, landing briefly on a fence post, wings glistening with moisture, and the sound cuts through the low rhythm of labour. Your muscles tense, your jaw aches from the strain, yet you move again, dragging roots free, pressing into mud, bending until every joint hums with quiet protest. Every motion tastes of effort, every breath carries the chill of damp and fatigue. Every step presses you deeper into the endless rhythm of survival. By mid-afternoon, the drizzle begins again, soft at first, then steady, soaking through your clothes and hair, chilling you to the bone. You bend once more, hands raw, fingers trembling, and taste the metallic tang of sweat, blood, and mud mingling on your tongue. There is no relief, no pause, only the unyielding insistence of labour, hunger, and the ordinary relentless demands of survival pressing against every fibre of your body. You press forward, swallowed entirely by the wet, grey expanse, every motion a quiet argument with the world itself. The drizzle turns to steady rain, falling in cold, sharp threads that soak your hair and seep into the cracks of your clothing. Each step in the mud presses against your calves, boots sucking and clinging as though the earth itself refuses to release you. Your fingers, raw and knotted, dig again into the wet soil, scraping roots that resist, cutting into the tender flesh beneath your nails. You taste the tang of iron on your tongue, bitter and persistent, mixed with the damp flavour of old sweat. A child stumbles near the edge of the field, shrieking as mud swallows small boots. The mother does not pause, her back bent low, hands streaked with dirt and faint traces of dried blood, dragging stubborn roots free from unyielding soil. The child wails, a sharp, piercing sound that gnaws at your chest. But you recognise its rhythm. It is ordinary suffering, expected, absorbed into the background of daily life. Your own stomach twists with hunger, faint pangs that rise and fall like tides, always present, never sated. The air is heavy with the mingled odours of wet straw, manure and decaying leaves, pressing into your nose and throat, mingling with the bitter metallic taste of your own blood from a small cut on your palm. Somewhere a dog scratches at a gate, nails tapping a hollow rhythm, while a pig snorts in the pen, nostrils pressed to sodden straw. Each sound, each smell presses against your awareness, and you inhale deeply, tasting the world as it presses back. Your knees sink into the mud with every bend, back protesting, muscles trembling from repeated exertion. The horizon is unbroken, grey and wet, stretching endlessly, reflecting your own exhaustion. A crow lands briefly on a fence post, flapping wings dripping water, cawing sharply, and your heart tightens in sudden awareness of life continuing, indifferent to human pain. You bend again, hands digging, scraping, tugging roots, tasting the bitter soil, feeling each small sting of raw flesh as the earth exacts its quiet revenge. The day stretches onward, monotonous yet oppressive, each movement a negotiation with your own body, each breath a bitter drought of damp, metallic air. Hunger twists low in your stomach, muscles ache with fatigue, and your hands throb with constant pressure and small cuts. The rain persists, soaking through hair and sleeves, pressing into the small hollow of your spine, chilling bones deep enough that warmth feels like a distant memory. By evening, the fields are a slick expanse of mud, broken roots and puddles, reflecting the pale grey of a sky that will not lighten. You bend once more, hands raw, back trembling, and press into the wet soil, tasting the bitter mixture of earth, sweat, and iron. Life presses on, unrelenting, indifferent, swallowing you into the rhythm of ordinary suffering. You rise slightly, inhale the damp metallic air, and step forward again, every fibre of your body entwined with labour, fatigue, and relentless survival. The rain eases, leaving the air thick and suffocating, damp curling into every fold of your clothing and hair. Your hands ache, knuckles raw, fingers stiff and cracked, yet they press again into the soil, scraping and tugging at roots that refuse to yield. Each motion is a quiet argument with exhaustion, muscles humming with protest, back stiff from repeated bends. The taste of mud lingers on your tongue, metallic and bitter, mingling with sweat and the faint copper tang of small cuts along your palms. A child whimpers near the edge of the field, boots swallowed by mud, hands grasping the soaked hem of a skirt. The mother moves past, without pause, bent, low, back-taut, fingers streaked with grime and blood. She drags stubborn roots from the soil, each motion precise, necessary, the rhythm of survival carved into her body over countless days. Hunger twists low in your stomach, insistent, gnawing quietly at the edges of your focus, sharpened by the faint aroma of bread baking in a distant chimney. The wind shifts suddenly, carrying the pungent mixture of wet straw, manure, and rotting leaves. Somewhere, A dog scratches at a gate, nails clicking against the wood, and a pig grunts from its pen, nostrils pressed to sodden straw. The sounds press into your awareness, intrusive yet familiar, a backdrop to the monotony of labour. You taste the bitter mix of earth, sweat, and faint iron in your mouth, swallow and press on, bending, scraping, pulling, the motion both punishment and necessity. Your boots sink into the softened mud, each step a small negotiation with the unyielding ground. The horizon stretches grey and endless, fields slick with water and broken stalks, and you press forward, muscles trembling, knees aching, fingers raw. A crow flits across the sky, wings wet, landing briefly on a fence post before taking flight again, the blackness of its feathers sharp against the grey. Its call pierces the monotony, a reminder that life continues, indifferent to pain or fatigue. Rain begins again, fine at first, then steady, soaking your hair and sleeves, pooling along your spine, chilling every muscle. You bend once more, pressing hands into the cold, wet soil, scraping stubborn roots, tasting the bitter, metallic mix of blood, mud, and sweat on your tongue. Every breath carries the weight of damp, the chill of the day, the constant gnaw of hunger, the ache in muscles and bones, pressing against your endurance. By late afternoon, the field is a glistening expanse of mud, puddles reflecting the dull grey sky, roots and weeds twisted and broken. You straighten briefly, back tight, hands trembling, and inhale the wet, bitter air. Then you bend again, taste the mud and sweat, and step forward, swallowed into the relentless rhythm of labour, fatigue, and ordinary survival that does not pause, forgive, or care for the cost it exacts. The sky remains a flat grey, heavy and low, pressing down on the soaked fields like a weight. Your hands, stiff and cracked from constant labour, press again into the mud, scraping roots that cling stubbornly to the earth. Each motion sends sharp protests through your muscles. Shoulders tight, back aching, knees stiff. The taste of damp soil and iron lingers on your tongue, bitter and persistent, mingling with the faint tang of sweat and the coppery reminder of small cuts on your palms. A child stumbles in the mud, wailing, boots caked thick and slippery. Their mother moves without pause, hands streaked with grime and dried blood, back bent low, as though her body itself is part of the soil. You watch her, recognizing every subtle shift, the tense shoulders, the careful placement of feet, the slow, deliberate tug of roots free from the earth. Hunger gnaws quietly in your stomach, low and insistent, sharpened by the faint, teasing aroma of baking bread from a distant house. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of wet straw, manure, and decaying leaves. Somewhere nearby, a dog scratches at a fence, nails tapping a hollow rhythm, while a pig grunts in the pen, pressing its wet snout to sodden straw. You taste the bitterness of earth and sweat together, swallow, and bend again, dragging roots free, fingers raw, knuckles white, each motion pressing fatigue deeper into your muscles and bones. Your boots sink with every step, mud pulling at your legs and skirts as if claiming them. The horizon stretches unbroken, grey and endless, slick with water, broken stalks, and stubborn weeds. You glance up briefly at a crow perched on a fence post, black wings glistening with moisture, and it caws sharply, a harsh punctuation in the dull rhythm of labour. Its presence is brief, indifferent, and soon it is gone, leaving only the relentless expanse of mud and toil. Rain begins again, cold and insistent, soaking through hair and sleeves, pressing into your spine, chilling you from the inside out. Every breath tastes damp and metallic. Every motion brings the ache sharper into your back and knees. Hunger twists low, persistent and cruel, gnawing at the hollow beneath your ribs. Still you bend once more, fingers pressing into the wet, unyielding soil, scraping, tugging, dragging, tasting the bitter mixture of mud, sweat and blood on your tongue. By late afternoon, the fields are a patchwork of grey mud, puddles and broken roots. Your muscles tremble with effort, back stiff, hands raw, yet you bend again, press into the earth and step forward, swallowed entirely by the rhythm of ordinary life. The world does not pause, the soil does not forgive. You inhale the damp, metallic air, taste the labour on your tongue, and continue, every fibre of your body entwined with survival, fatigue, and the unrelenting insistence of existence itself. The sky has dimmed further, grey pressing down low, heavy and unyielding, as if the clouds themselves are bent to trap the world beneath them. Your hands are raw, streaked with mud and small cuts that ache with every movement, yet they press again into the earth, scraping stubborn roots from the soaked soil. Each motion hums through your arms and back, muscles tense, joints stiff, a quiet argument with exhaustion that never ceases. The taste of bitter earth and iron clings to your tongue, mingled with sweat and the faint copper tang of dried blood. A child cries in the distance, a sharp piercing wail carried on the damp wind. You glance toward the sound, recognizing the rhythm of fear and fatigue, of hunger and cold. The mother does not look up, fingers curled into mud, pulling weeds and roots with a precision carved from necessity. Her shoulders are tense, back bowed, muscles taut as though they will snap, and you see yourself in every movement, every ache mirrored in your own body. Hunger gnaws low, a constant presence, sharpening with the faint, cruel aroma of bread from a distant chimney, untouchable yet tantalizing. The wind shifts, carrying the musky stench of animals pressed into wet pens, manure and decaying leaves. Somewhere nearby, a dog scratches at a fence, nails clacking, while a pig grunts in the straw, nostrils pressed to damp earth. You taste it all in the bitter metallic mix of air, mud and sweat that clings to your tongue and throat. You bend again, hands scraping, tugging roots from the unyielding soil, each motion pressing fatigue deeper into your limbs, each breath carrying the chill and dampness of ordinary life. Your boots sink into the softened mud with every step, legs heavy, knees trembling, back stiff and protesting. The horizon stretches grey and endless, slick with water and broken stalks, as though the world itself were a reflection of your exhaustion. A crow lands on a fence post, wings slick with rain, cawing sharply, and you flinch, muscles tightening instinctively. Its presence is fleeting, indifferent, disappearing as quickly as it arrived, leaving you alone with the relentless expanse of fields, roots, and labour. Rain begins again, fine at first, then heavier, soaking hair, sleeves, and the small hollow of your spine, chilling you to the bone. Every breath tastes metallic and bitter, every motion presses fatigue sharper into your shoulders, every joint hums with quiet protest. Hunger twists low in your stomach, gnawing, insistent. You bend once more, fingers raw, hands slick with mud, pressing into the soil, scraping, dragging, tasting sweat and earth together, and step forward, swallowed entirely by the rhythm of ordinary survival that does not pause, forgive, or relent. The drizzle has returned, soft and cold, curling into your hair and seeping into the seams of your clothing. Mud clings stubbornly to your boots, weighing each step, pulling at your calves, and you taste the faint metallic tang of iron on your tongue with every bend. Your hands are streaked with blood and grime, knuckles cracked, fingers raw, yet they press into the soil again, scraping stubborn roots free from the unyielding earth. Every motion hums through your muscles, a quiet, insistent reminder of the ache in your back and knees. A companion You cannot escape. A child whines at the edge of the field, slipping in the thick mud, skirt and sleeves plastered to small legs and arms. Their mother bends without pause, hair wet and clinging to her cheeks, hands streaked with grime, fingers stiff with cold. She pulls roots from the soil in slow, deliberate motions, back taut, shoulders tense, movements carved from necessity and repetition. Hunger twists low in your stomach, a persistent gnaw that sharpens with the faint, cruel aroma of bread baking in a distant house. The smell carrying over the damp feels like a reminder of what you cannot have. The wind rises suddenly, carrying the smell of wet straw, manure, and rotting leaves. A dog scratches at a fence, nails tapping against rotted wood, while a pig grunts, pressing its wet snout into sodden straw. The sounds press against you, sharp and intrusive, yet familiar, a rhythm of ordinary life that does not pause for comfort. You taste the bitter mixture of mud, sweat and iron in your mouth, swallow, and press into the earth again, dragging roots free, fingers aching, knuckles white with strain. Your boots sink with every step, mud pressing against your calves, pulling at the hems of skirts, grounding you in a world that will not relent. The horizon stretches endlessly, grey and wet, broken only by the scattered shapes of trees, pens and distant cottages. A crow lands briefly on a fence post, wings dripping, cawing sharply, its cry stark against the dull patter of rain and the low hum of labourers bent over fields. The moment is fleeting, indifferent, a small punctuation in the endless expanse of toil. Rain begins to fall harder, soaking your hair and sleeves, dripping down the hollow of your back, pressing cold into every muscle. Every breath carries the taste of damp, earth and sweat. Every motion presses fatigue deeper into your body. Hunger gnaws relentlessly, muscles tremble, and joints protest. You bend once more, hands raw, fingers slick with mud, pressing into the soil, scraping, tugging, pulling. Each step tastes of bitter survival, each breath of damp endurance, and you move forward, swallowed entirely by the unrelenting rhythm of ordinary life, fatigue, and the cold, indifferent earth. The grey morning presses down heavy, low clouds spilling light so pale it almost feels absent. Your hands are raw, fingers knotted and cracked, each joint stiff, yet they dig into the mud again, dragging roots and clumps of soil that cling as if alive. The earth tastes metallic on your tongue, bitter with iron, mingled with the faint sourness of sweat, and you swallow because hunger gnaws relentlessly beneath it all. Muscles hum with fatigue, back stiff, knees trembling, but still you bend again, scraping, tugging, pulling, every motion a quiet argument with pain. A child wails nearby, voice sharp and urgent, echoing across the wet field. Their mother does not pause, fingers curled into mud, back bent low, hands bleeding faintly from scrapes that sting with cold rain. You see her precision, the slow, deliberate rhythm carved from countless days of labour, and recognise it in yourself. The ache in every muscle, the tension in every joint, the persistent gnaw of hunger. The wind carries the faint aroma of wet straw, manure, and decaying leaves, pressing into your nose and throat with relentless insistence. A dog scratches at a fence nearby, nails tapping hollow against rotted wood, while a pig grunts softly, pressing its wet snout to sodden straw. The noises are both distraction and accompaniment, part of the rhythm of labour. You taste the bitter mixture of mud, sweat and blood on your tongue, swallow and bend once more, pressing fingers into the cold, unyielding soil. Every motion deepens fatigue, every breath carries damp air thick with the scent of ordinary life, and every joint hums with quiet protest. Your boots sink into softened mud, heavy and sticky, pulling at your calves, weighing each step. The horizon stretches grey, endless, slick with water, broken stalks and twisted roots. A crow lands briefly on a fence post, wings dripping and caws harshly, cutting through the dull rhythm of labour. Its presence is fleeting, indifferent, leaving you alone with the unyielding expanse of fields and toil. Rain begins again, fine at first, then heavy, soaking hair and sleeves, pressing cold into the hollow of your back. Every breath tastes metallic, bitter, damp. Every motion presses exhaustion deeper into your body. Hunger twists low, insistent, gnawing with quiet cruelty. You bend once more, hands raw, fingers slick with mud, pressing into soil, scraping, tugging roots free. Each step tastes of bitter survival, each breath of relentless endurance. You rise briefly, inhale the cold, damp air, and step forward again, swallowed by the wet, indifferent world, pressed into the rhythm of ordinary life that does not pause, forgive, or relent. The sky hangs low and grey, a thick, unbroken ceiling pressing down on the wet fields. Your hands ache, fingers stiff and raw, nails streaked with mud and faint lines of dried blood. Yet they press again into the earth, scraping roots and pulling stubborn clumps of soil, muscles trembling with every motion. The taste of wet clay and iron lingers on your tongue, bitter, metallic, mingled with sweat, and you swallow because hunger gnaws quietly beneath it, relentless and cruel. A child cries sharply nearby, boots swallowed by the sticky mud, skirt plastered to small legs. Their mother moves past without pause, bent low, back taut, fingers curled into the earth, hands streaked with grime and faint traces of dried blood. Her movements are slow, deliberate, carved from necessity, each motion a negotiation with pain. You recognize it in yourself, the stiff muscles, the tight shoulders, the quiet, gnawing ache in your stomach that will not be sated. The wind shifts, carrying with it the musky tang of animals pressed into damp pens, the faint smell of manure and decaying leaves. A dog scratches at a fence, nails clicking against rotted wood, and a pig grunts, wet snout pressed to sodden straw. You taste the bitter tang of earth and sweat together, swallow, and bend again, dragging roots free, scraping stones, pressing into the mud with trembling hands. Every motion presses fatigue deeper, every breath tastes of damp, bitter endurance, and every joint hums with quiet protest. Your boots sink with every step, mud clinging to calves, skirts heavy with water. The horizon stretches grey and endless, slick with broken stalks and puddles, a mirror of your own exhaustion. A crow lands briefly on a fence post, wings wet, cawing sharply, and your heart tightens with a brief pulse of awareness before it lifts and flies, leaving you alone with the relentless rhythm of labour. Rain begins again, sharper now, drenching hair, sleeves, and the hollow of your back. Every breath tastes metallic and bitter. Every motion presses pain and fatigue deeper into your shoulders, knees, and spine. Hunger twists low, insistent, gnawing quietly, sharpening with the faint, cruel aroma of bread baking in a distant home. Still, you bend again, hands raw, fingers slick with mud, pressing into the unyielding soil, scraping, tugging, pulling. By evening the field is a glistening expanse of grey mud, roots and puddles. You straighten briefly, back trembling, muscles screaming, taste the damp, bitter earth on your tongue, and step forward again, swallowed entirely by the unbroken rhythm of ordinary life. The world does not pause, does not forgive, and does not care for your exhaustion. You move forward, pressed into the wet, unyielding earth, labouring under hunger, cold, and relentless necessity. The grey light lingers, heavy and unbroken, pressing the wet fields into a flat, oppressive plain. Your hands are raw and streaked with mud, knuckles cracked, fingers trembling as they press again into the damp soil. Roots resist stubbornly, clinging to the earth as if the ground itself objects to your intrusion. Each scrape, each tug, sends shocks of fatigue through your shoulders, back, and knees. The taste of iron and wet clay lingers on your tongue, bitter, persistent, mingled with the faint tang of sweat and small cuts along your palms. A child cries near the edge of the field, small voice high, urgent, yet their mother does not pause. She moves with deliberate precision, back bent, shoulders tight, hands slick with mud and faint blood, dragging weeds and roots free from the earth, with a rhythm born of repetition and necessity. You see yourself in her movements, the ache mirrored in your own body, the hunger gnawing low, persistent, sharpened by the faint, tantalizing aroma of bread from a neighbour's oven. The wind shifts, carrying the musky scent of livestock pressed into damp pens, the faint tang of manure and decaying leaves. A dog scratches at a fence, nails tapping hollow against rotted wood, while a pig grunts softly from the straw. The sounds press into your awareness, intrusive and yet familiar, a rhythm of ordinary life that continues regardless of exhaustion or pain. You taste the bitter metallic mixture of mud, sweat and blood on your tongue, swallow and bend again, fingers scraping, pulling, pressing into the earth with trembling insistence. Your boots sink into the softened mud with every step, calves and skirts weighed down, the horizon stretching grey and endless, slick with puddles and broken stalks. A crow flits briefly across the sky, landing on a fence post, wings wet and black, cawing sharply before flying again. Its presence is fleeting, indifferent, leaving you alone with the unbroken rhythm of labour and the relentless expanse of fields and toil. Rain begins again, falling in cold, fine threads, soaking hair, sleeves, and the small hollow of your spine. Every breath tastes damp and metallic. Every motion presses fatigue deeper into your body. Every joint hums with quiet protest. Hunger twists low, insistent, gnawing, sharpening with the faint, cruel reminder of what you cannot reach. You bend once more, hands raw, fingers slick with mud, pressing into soil, scraping, tugging roots free. Each motion tastes of bitter survival. Each step carries the weight of ordinary endurance. And you step forward, swallowed entirely by the wet, unyielding world pressing against you. The grey morning presses down low, heavy, damp, as if the clouds themselves are bent to crush the world beneath them. Your hands are stiff, knuckles cracked, streaked with mud and faint lines of dried blood. Yet they press again into the wet earth, scraping roots free from the stubborn soil. Each motion hums through your muscles, presses your joints, makes your back ache in a quiet, insistent rhythm. The taste of mud and iron lingers on your tongue, bitter and metallic, mingled with the faint tang of sweat and copper from tiny cuts on your palms. A child cries at the edge of the field, boots and skirts swallowed by thick mud. Their mother does not look up, fingers curled into soil, dragging stubborn roots with slow precision. Her back is bent, shoulders taut, hands streaked with grime, her movements carved by repetition and necessity. Hunger twists low in your belly, insistent and gnawing, sharpened by the faint aroma of bread baking in a distant house, a scent both cruel and tantalizing. The wind shifts, carrying the pungent mixture of wet straw, manure, and decaying leaves. A dog scratches at a fence, nails tapping hollow against rotted wood, while a pig snorts from the straw, wet muzzle pressed to the damp floor. You taste the bitter mixture of sweat and mud on your tongue, swallow, and press your hands again into the cold, unyielding earth. Each motion deepens fatigue, muscles tremble, joints hum, and every breath carries the chill and heaviness of ordinary survival. Your boots sink into softened mud with each step, calves heavy, skirts weighed down, and the horizon stretches grey and unbroken, slick with puddles, broken stalks, and roots that refuse to release. A crow lands briefly on a fence post, wings black and glistening with rain, cawing sharply before lifting again. Its presence is fleeting, indifferent, leaving you alone with the relentless rhythm of labour and the wet, oppressive expanse of fields and soil. Rain begins again, sharper now, cold and pressing, soaking your hair, sleeves, and spine. Every breath tastes metallic, bitter, damp. Every motion presses fatigue deeper into your shoulders, back, and knees. Hunger gnaws low, insistent, sharp. You bend once more, fingers raw, hands slick with mud, pressing into soil, scraping, tugging, dragging. Each step tastes of bitter survival, every breath of relentless labour. You rise briefly, inhale the damp, metallic air, and step forward, swallowed entirely by the unrelenting rhythm of ordinary life that does not pause, forgive, or relent. The grey light drifts across the soaked fields like a heavy veil, dull and unyielding. Your hands are streaked with mud, knuckles cracked, fingers raw, yet they dig again into the earth, dragging roots and clumps of soil that cling stubbornly, as if the ground itself resents being disturbed. Each motion presses fatigue deeper into your back, shoulders and knees. The taste of damp clay and iron lingers on your tongue, bitter and metallic, mingling with sweat and the faint copper tang of small cuts on your palms. A child wails near the edge of the field, boots slipping in mud, hair plastered to a pale, mud-streaked face. The mother does not pause, fingers pressed into wet soil, back bent low, shoulders tense, dragging roots free with careful, deliberate motions. You see yourself mirrored in every ache, every tremor of fatigue, every gnawing hunger that twists low and insistent in your stomach. The faint aroma of bread from a distant oven rises, cruel and unattainable, sharpening the ache in your belly. The wind shifts, carrying the pungent scent of wet straw, manure, and decaying leaves. A dog scratches at a fence, nails clacking against rotted wood, while a pig grunts, snout pressed to sodden straw. The sounds press into your awareness, intrusive yet familiar, part of the rhythm of ordinary life that continues regardless of exhaustion or suffering. You taste the bitter mixture of mud, sweat and iron, swallow, and bend once more, pressing fingers into the cold, unyielding soil, scraping, tugging, pulling with trembling insistence. Your boots sink into the softened mud, calves heavy, skirts weighed down, horizon grey and endless, slick with water, broken stalks and roots that refuse release. A crow lands briefly on a fence post, black wings glistening with rain, cawing sharply, before lifting again into the oppressive sky. Its presence is fleeting, indifferent, leaving you alone with the wet, relentless rhythm of labour. Rain begins again, sharp and cold, soaking hair and sleeves, dripping down the hollow of your back. Every breath tastes metallic and bitter, every motion presses pain deeper into your muscles and joints. Hunger twists low, insistent, gnawing like a constant companion. You bend once more, hands raw, fingers slick with mud, pressing into soil, scraping, tugging roots free. Each motion tastes of bitter survival. Every step carries the weight of ordinary endurance. And you step forward, swallowed entirely by the unrelenting rhythm of life in the wet, indifferent world. The grey light deepens, low clouds pressing heavy against the soaked fields, as if the sky itself is leaning in to watch your labour. Your hands are raw, knuckles cracked, fingers slick with mud and streaked with faint lines of dried blood. Yet they press again into the soil, tugging stubborn roots free from the unyielding earth. Every motion hums through your muscles, presses your joints, makes your back ache in quiet insistence. The taste of wet clay and iron lingers on your tongue, bitter and metallic, mingled with sweat and the faint copper tang of small cuts along your palms. A child stumbles near the edge of the field, wailing, boots swallowed by thick mud, skirt plastered to small legs. Their mother does not pause, bent low, back taut, shoulders tense, fingers curled into mud, dragging weeds and roots with careful precision. Her movements are carved from repetition and necessity. Hunger gnaws low in your belly, sharp and persistent, sharpened further by the faint, cruel aroma of bread baking in a distant home. The wind shifts suddenly, carrying the pungent mixture of wet straw, manure and decaying leaves. A dog scratches at a fence, nails tapping hollow against rotted wood, while a pig snorts softly from the straw. The noises press into your awareness, intrusive yet familiar, part of the rhythm of ordinary life that does not pause for comfort. You taste the bitter metallic mixture of mud, sweat and blood on your tongue, swallow and bend again, pressing hands into the cold, unyielding soil, dragging roots free, scraping stubborn stones, fingers trembling with effort. Your boots sink into softened mud with every step, calves and skirts weighed down, horizon stretching grey and endless, slick with puddles and broken stalks. A crow lands briefly on a fence post, black wings glistening with rain, cawing sharply before lifting again. Its presence is fleeting, indifferent, leaving you alone with the unbroken rhythm of labour, the endless expanse of fields and toil. Rain begins again, cold and insistent, soaking hair, sleeves and the hollow of your back. Every breath tastes metallic, bitter, damp. Every motion presses fatigue deeper into your body. Every joint hums with quiet protest. Hunger twists low, insistent, gnawing. You bend once more, hands raw, fingers slick with mud, pressing into soil, scraping, tugging roots free. Each motion tastes of bitter survival. Every step carries the weight of ordinary endurance. And you step forward, swallowed entirely by the unrelenting rhythm of ordinary life, fatigue, and the indifferent earth that claims all. The grey sky hangs heavy and unbroken, pressing down on the wet fields. A ceiling that seems impossibly low. Your hands are raw, knuckles cracked, fingers slick with mud and faint traces of dried blood. Yet they press again into the cold, unyielding soil, scraping roots stubbornly clinging as if to resist release. Every motion hums through your muscles, presses joints taut, sends ache deep into your back and knees. The taste of earth and iron lingers on your tongue, bitter and metallic, mingled with sweat and the copper tang of small cuts. A child cries nearby, boots swallowed by the thick mud, hair plastered to cheeks streaked with grime. Their mother bends without pause, fingers curled into the soil, back taut, shoulders tight, dragging roots free in careful, deliberate motions born from repetition and necessity. Hunger twists low in your stomach, insistent, gnawing with a cruel persistence, sharpened by the faint aroma of baking bread from a distant oven, teasing and unreachable. The wind shifts, carrying the mingled scent of wet straw, manure and decaying leaves. Somewhere a dog scratches at a fence, nails tapping hollow. A pig grunts from its pen, snout pressed into sodden straw. Every sound, every smell presses into your awareness. Intrusive yet familiar, part of the rhythm of ordinary life that refuses relief. You taste the bitter mixture of mud, sweat and blood, swallow and bend again. Fingers pressing into the cold earth, dragging roots, scraping stones, muscles quivering with effort. Your boots sink into the mud with each step, calves heavy, skirts weighed down, horizon grey and endless, slick with puddles and broken stalks. A crow lands briefly on a fence post, black wings wet with rain, cawing sharply before lifting again into the oppressive sky. Its presence is fleeting, indifferent, leaving only the relentless rhythm of labour, the wet expanse of soil and toil pressing insistently against you. Rain begins again, fine at first, then sharp, soaking hair, sleeves and the hollow of your spine, chilling you deep into your bones. Every breath tastes metallic and bitter. Every motion presses fatigue deeper into your shoulders, back and knees. Hunger gnaws relentlessly. Muscles tremble. Joints ache. And yet you bend once more. Hands raw. Fingers slick with mud. Pressing into soil. Scraping. Tugging roots free. Each motion tastes of bitter survival. Every step carries the weight of ordinary endurance, and you move forward, swallowed entirely by the unyielding rhythm of life, labour, and the indifferent earth that takes without pause or pity. The field stretches endlessly, grey, wet, and relentless. You step forward again, and again, pressed into survival, exhaustion, and the ordinary suffering that defines existence in these times, swallowed by the damp, indifferent world that does not forgive, does not relent, and does not cease.